When that winter of 1974 hit, the temperature dropped to minus 28 Fahrenheit, and I was 3 weeks into what looked like a starvation season. I needed to catch rabbits, not just a few, but enough protein to survive the next 4 months alone in those mountains. I had maybe 40 days before my body would start consuming itself. That's when those hunters showed up from the valley with their steel traps, their equipment catalogs, their confidence. There were 5 of them, all under 40 years old, with factory-made snares and professional gear that cost more than I had earned in a year. They laughed when they saw what I was doing. Stone deadfalls, they called them. Primitive, inefficient. They said no serious trapper had used that method in 30 years. They laid out their traps along the same trails I knew. We made an informal bet. 3 months, same territory, same conditions. Let's see who brings in more rabbits. They thought their steel and their modern techniques would outmatch my stone and experience. But what happened in those 90 days proved something I'd learned the hard way during 4 decades of isolation. Sometimes the oldest methods aren't old because they failed. They're old because they work, and they work better than anything that's come since. Before I tell you exactly how I did it, if you appreciate practical knowledge that can actually save your life, subscribe to this channel. I post new survival techniques every single week. Tested methods. Real knowledge from 40 years surviving in the wilderness. Everything you'll learn here might be the difference between making it and not making it when you're truly alone. Now let me take you back to where this all began. I was 28 years old when I first walked into those mountains in 1946. I had basic hunting experience from my father, nothing special. I'd shot some deer, set a few snares for rabbits as a boy, but I wasn't an expert. I was just a young man looking to disappear from a world that felt too loud. Every trapper in that region used the same approach to deadfalls back then. We all did. The method was simple enough. You'd find a spot where rabbits moved through. You'd stack stones in a basic pyramid shape, maybe 3 feet tall, 2 feet at the base. You'd prop it up with a trigger stick underneath. Bait it with dried fruit or roots, and wait. The rabbit comes, nudges the trigger, the stones fall. In theory, it was perfect. In practice, I was catching only 2 or 3 rabbits every week, sometimes just 1. My neighbors were catching the same. We all accepted it as normal. The failure rate was high, maybe 60%. Traps would collapse when they weren't supposed to. Rabbits would escape. Sometimes the trigger mechanism just didn't work. I was burning 3,000 calories a day just surviving the cold and the work. I was only consuming maybe 1,800 calories from my hunting and trapping. By my second winter, I'd lost 32 pounds. By my third winter, I was sick most of the season. I was weak, hungry. Watching my clothes hang loose on my frame and knowing that another winter like this one would probably kill me, that's when things had to change. The first person who taught me something different was a man named Charles Whitmore. I met him in 1949, about a year before he died. He was 83 years old and had been trapping since before the Civil War. He came through the territory one fall and we shared a fire for 2 nights. He watched me set my traps and he didn't say anything for a long time. Then he told me the trap was too tall. He said, "Too tall means the rock falls at the wrong angle. It loses momentum. The rabbit moves 2 inches and lives." He told me the height should be no more than 22 inches from ground to the peak of the stone. Exact measurement he'd figured out over 60 years. I didn't believe him. The taller trap seemed more powerful to me, but I listened. The second source of knowledge came from the Shoshone people who lived closer to the valley. I traded with them sometimes. One of their hunters, a man named Joseph, showed me something about trigger sensitivity. He said most trappers made the trigger too sensitive. The rabbit barely touched it, and nothing happened because the whole mechanism was too loose. He showed me how to use a very specific angle, 55 degrees exactly. He demonstrated it with his hands. Below 55 degrees, the weight distribution was wrong. Above 55 degrees, the rabbit could escape before the collapse. He'd learned this from his grandfather. They'd been using deadfalls for 200 years in that region. What Joseph taught me changed everything about how I understood the mechanism. The third thing I learned came from my own observation and from experimentation. I started watching natural predators, coyotes and foxes hunting in winter. I noticed where they positioned themselves, how they waited, what scents they used. I realized the bait position made an enormous difference, but I had to test it. I also read an old trapper's journal I found in an abandoned cabin. Written in 1892, that man had figured out some principles I'd never considered about the weight of stone, the composition of rock, why granite worked differently than limestone. So I studied. I doubted everything I thought I knew. Then I started experimenting systematically. That's how this method came together. Not from one source, from multiple people, multiple observations, and a lot of failure. Before I show you exactly how to build one of these traps, let me be clear about one thing. You can do this. You don't need special tools. You don't need certification or expensive equipment. You need to pay attention. You need to follow exact specifications, and you need to understand why each step matters. That's what separates working traps from non-working traps. Now let's talk about materials. Everything starts with stone. You need what I call a striking stone. This is the weight that does the killing. Not any rock will work. You're looking for dense stone, granite or basalt ideally. You can find these in riverbeds where water has concentrated the heaviest materials. The striking stone needs to weigh between 38 and 45 pounds. I know that's specific. I measured this over decades. Lighter than 38 pounds and the rabbit survives the collapse. Heavier than 45 pounds and you damage the meat beyond use. Test your stone by dropping it from 3 feet onto hard ground. It should not crack or chip noticeably. If it shatters, it's too brittle. Put it back. The color tells you density. Darker stone is denser. Look for deep gray or black granite with visible mica flakes. Avoid pale stones. They're usually softer. Collect your stones in autumn when water levels are low and riverbeds are exposed. Never take from active water. Take from the banks. Carry several candidates back to your work area. You'll discard most of them. Your support stones are different. These are the base and sides of your structure. You need 4 to 6 stones for the base platform. Each should weigh 12 to 18 pounds. Flat on one side. They create a level foundation. The trap fails if it's unstable. These don't need to be as dense as your striking stone. Limestone works here. Sandstone works. Anything that stacks cleanly. Look for natural flat surfaces. Avoid round stones. Round stones roll during construction and waste your time. You'll need another 4 to 6 mid-level stones. These weigh 8 to 12 pounds each. They create the sides of your pyramid structure. They need to be somewhat uniform in size. Variation causes collapse at the wrong moment. Again, look for naturally flatter pieces. Your material collection takes about 4 hours for a single trap. Most people rush this part, and it costs them. The trap fails because the materials were wrong, not because the design was wrong. Next is wood. Your trigger stick is the critical piece. This needs to be hardwood, not soft pine. Hardwood means oak, hickory, or maple, where I trapped. Diameter should be exactly 3/4 of an inch. Measure it. Length about 14 inches. This stick must be strong enough to support the weight of your striking stone temporarily, but yield under the pressure of a rabbit's body. If it's too thick, it won't yield. If it's too thin, it breaks during construction. Cut your trigger stick from dead wood, dead trees standing in the forest. Look for wood that's dry but not rotted. The wood should snap cleanly when you bend it slightly. If it splinters and bends without snapping, it's still too fresh. Store your trigger sticks in a dry location for 2 weeks after cutting. This hardens them further. Your structural support sticks are different. These are thicker, 1 1/4 inches in diameter, hickory preferred. These form the framework that holds your pyramid together before the trap springs. You need 4 pieces about 10 inches long each. These must be very strong. They bear the weight of the entire structure. Test them by attempting to bend them with your hands. They should barely flex. If you can bend one significantly, it's not suitable. The bait is critical to success. Rabbits want fresh vegetation primarily. In winter, dried clover root works best. You collect clover in late summer. Dig the roots. Clean them. Dry them completely in sun for 3 days minimum. Store them in canvas sacks in cool, dry places. They last all winter. The root should be cut into half-inch pieces. This size is easy for a rabbit to grab, but takes seconds of handling time inside your trap. That delay matters. The rabbit is fully committed to the bait when the trigger releases. Some trappers use apple pieces. This works but attracts other animals sometimes. Stick with dried root. Cut your bait pieces the day before you set traps. Freshly cut root is more aromatic. Your trigger line can be cordage or plant material. I preferred thin willow strips. You harvest willow in spring when sap is moving. Strip the bark in quarter-inch widths. Dry these strips for 5 days in shade. They become flexible but strong. These are superior to manufactured twine because they biodegrade and don't persist in nature if you don't retrieve the trap. If you don't have access to willow, use thin, dry grass stems twisted together. Or use natural fiber cordage if you have it. What you're avoiding is anything synthetic. It doesn't belong in the trap. Tools required are minimal. A knife for cutting, sharp, a hatchet for wood processing. A flat-faced stone works if you don't have a hammer. For measuring, you need a simple measuring stick marked in inches. Carve notches at 6-inch intervals. This takes 30 minutes. Most people underestimate the value of accurate measuring. Be precise. Gather all materials in one location before assembly begins. This takes 2 to 3 hours total. Your preparation time per trap is approximately 90 minutes. This includes collecting stones, processing wood, preparing bait, and organizing everything in order. Common mistakes happen here. Most people skip preparation. They collect mediocre stones. They use green wood. They rush. These traps then fail repeatedly. I've seen experienced trappers set poorly prepared traps and then blame the design. The design is fine. The materials were wrong. Respect the preparation phase. When November of 1974 arrived, I had my method refined and tested. I set 43 deadfall traps across the territory I shared with those 5 hunters from the valley. They set their equipment simultaneously. 32 steel traps spread across the same general area. Same elevation, same rabbit populations, same weather conditions. The first week produced almost nothing for any of us. Snow came early. Temperatures dropped to -15 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground froze solid. But by week 3, the pattern became clear. My traps began producing consistently. 2 rabbits one day, 3 the next. Sometimes 4 on a good day. Their traps caught 1 rabbit, then nothing for 4 days. Then 1 more. By the end of the first month, I had 16 rabbits. They had 4. They were frustrated. They blamed the weather. They blamed their trap placement. One of them tried to improve his design. He added extra bait. It didn't help. At 60 days, I had 31 rabbits. They had 9. The difference was becoming undeniable. By the end of those 3 months in late February of 1975, the final count was 47 rabbits for me. 15 for all 5 of them combined. That's a ratio of 3 to 1 efficiency in my favor. Not close. They acknowledged it. Some grudgingly. One of them, a younger man named Robert, actually asked me to teach him the method. I did. He never forgot it. That 3-month challenge proved something I already knew but needed external validation for. The old method worked better than the new one. The reason was simple. Their steel traps made noise when they snapped. Rabbits in the territory heard the sound. They learned to avoid that area. My stone traps were silent. The rabbits never associated that location with danger. They kept returning to the same trails. My traps kept working. Efficiency improved over time rather than degrading. I used that exact method for the next 14 consecutive winters. From 1975 through 1989, 14 winters. 72% of my traps caught rabbits on any given week. Failure rate was below 5%, meaning the trap either failed to spring or failed to kill cleanly less than 1 time in 20. The steel trap owners I knew reported failure rates around 35%. They accepted this as normal. I never did. During the winter of 1982, I was feeding not just myself, but 2 other people who were stranded near my location. A couple lost in a snowstorm in November. They stayed through February. We needed to catch rabbits consistently or we would starve. I set 68 deadfall traps that winter. I caught 184 rabbits between December and March. That's nearly 5 rabbits per week on average. 184 rabbits meant survival for 3 people through 4 brutal months. Without this method, at least one of us wouldn't have made it. That's not speculation, that's mathematics. 68 traps producing consistently captured enough calories to sustain human life through winter. That's validation that matters. The knowledge spread despite my isolation. Other trappers in the region eventually learned the method from those hunters I'd challenged. Robert taught it to his son. That son lives in Colorado now and still uses the Deadfall for rabbit control on his property. I've received letters over the decades from people who learned it secondhand. A farmer in Montana used it to protect his crops. A homesteader in Idaho trapped rabbits for food security. A prepper in Utah integrated it into his survival plans. The method persisted because it worked. Today, in 2025, compare the economics. A modern steel trap costs between $12 and $18. They last maybe 4 or 5 seasons before rusting. You need replacement parts. You need bait station maintenance. My Deadfall trap costs $0. The materials are free. The only cost is your time to build it. Once built, it lasts indefinitely if maintained. It catches rabbits at rates comparable to modern methods. For rural property owners dealing with rabbit damage, it's silent and humane. For preppers building food security, it requires no supply chain. For bushcraft practitioners, it represents pure self-sufficiency. No dependence on manufactured goods. No expiration dates on materials. Just stone and wood and knowledge. The deeper lesson here is about efficiency and simplicity. Modern doesn't always mean better. Complicated doesn't always mean effective. We chase technology and forget that our ancestors solved these problems thoroughly. They refined methods over centuries, not because they were smarter than us, because they were forced to be practical. Failure meant death. There was no room for ego or trend. The methods that survived were the ones that worked. Everything else was forgotten. The Deadfall is simple. It's elegant. It requires no electricity, no fuel, no replacement parts, no maintenance contracts. It works in extreme cold. It works in storms. It works when everything else fails, because it's not dependent on anything except stone and wood and principles that never change. You can build this trap right now. If you understand the principles, if you're willing to be precise, if you respect the process, you can set a trap that works. You don't need certification. You don't need permission. You need knowledge and discipline. That's what I'm here to give you. If you found this valuable, if knowing how to feed yourself matters to you, subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell. Every single week, I release another technique from 40 years of living in the wilderness. Methods that have been tested in conditions that don't forgive mistakes. Leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever needed to trap something? What was your situation? I want to hear your stories. If you want to see another technique that literally saved my life during the winter of 1979, click the video that appears right here on your screen. It's about the shelter method that kept me alive through temperatures that reached -38 degrees Fahrenheit. I need to tell you something important. This channel presents fictional stories developed for educational purposes. The production includes artificial intelligence assistance in the narration and research process. The techniques are grounded in real wilderness survival principles, but the specific story of the wilderness trapper is a narrative framework designed to teach practical knowledge effectively. Stay safe out there.